your argument boils down to, if it were the case that we were deporting a fuckload of people and they all wanted to fight it, we can't let them do that. And that would be a Fifth Amendment violation. Why do you think it's okay to violate the Constitution? Why?
Because I think they're here, because it just goes back to where I just think they're here illegally. It pains me to say this, that I would go against the Constitution here, and it pains me to say that. You said Abreu, whatever his name is, Garcia was out of that prison that he was sent to, correct?
He's out of CCOT. They put him in they moved him to a different facility.
Okay, so how do we not know that Trump didn't help with that facilitation of that, right? And then the president of that country just said, no, we're not going to freaking let him out, but, we still want him, to be imprisoned or whatnot. See, we don't know that Trump didn't help facilitate with that, correct?
That he didn't ask them to move him to a new facility.
Correct.
We don't know that didn't happen.
Okay. I mean, I just think that that's, just kind of, we're living in a hypothetical world where, you're saying that for a fact he didn't help facilitate. But yeah, I think that him asking for a plane over there, I think he very well could have had, he's just not going to be proactive. Like the caller was saying, he's not going to be proactive.
Hold on, Miles. I need to clear something up with you.
Sure.
Like, you understand, that entire line of dialogue you just went down was utterly, completely, and entirely pointless, right?
Which part?
Doesn't mean how do we know he didn't release or how to facilitate having him move to a different facility? The order was never to facilitate his release from CCOT. It was facilitate his release from custody in El Salvador. So whether or not Trump had anything to do with getting him moved to a new facility, that doesn't mean he was following the court order. The court order was to get him out of custody.
Correct, but I think that president, when he was visiting Trump, also said that he was a felon, or he was, a danger to the society there, right? He was in agreement with Trump, and so if he did get released, and that president was just like, nah, we're not going to stand for that, then he's just going to arrest him right then and there. So what is Trump supposed to do? Say, well, we're not going to freaking understand your local laws, but I want him to be released inside of your country and be free? I don't know, that would never work.
Well, no.
I think that president thought he was. I think that president thought he was a criminal as well.
I think that's a very straw man argument. No, that wouldn't be how I would expect that to go at all. I wouldn't expect Trump to say hey, let him out of jail, because also you wouldn't have the American president. I mean, we have a lot of power. We could probably force him. It's El Salvador. We could force him to do whatever we wanted him to do. But no, the American president would never say, hey, you got a guy in jail right now. I'm going to need you to let him out of jail, and just let him roam around your country. We would never do such a thing. We would say, let us take him back. Let him out of jail, give him to me.
But he's not. We're never going to do that because he was here illegally, right? I mean, that's Trump's order originally, right? So the Supreme Court wanted us to facilitate his release, like you said, his release from that prison. But again, if he did help him facilitate that release, and then that president was just like, nah, he's a criminal in our country, we're just going to rearrest him. We just don't have all that information yet, right? I just think there's just too much missing there, and too much hyperbole on both ends to kind of assume that stuff. That's my view.
It could be the case that if your argument is that well, if they just let him go in El Salvador, then he would just be rearrested in El Salvador, under their law. You could be right, but I'm not arguing that. That's not my argument at all.
Right. We don't really know, right? Because just like what you said, the left, the narrative of the left to just send a plane and bring him back here, that's so miscued. And then, both sides are going to jump on the argument. I just say that we don't have all the facts, and you and I have talked before, and we've agreed on many things. So, that's just kind of my view. I just think that we're living under a lot of assumptions as to what happened when we really don't know.
Okay. I understand. But I'm just, okay. I guess here's my confusion. I guess I'll be more direct with you. I don't know which of my arguments or which of my beliefs about this situation you're trying to argue against now.
See, I don't really like to argue against anything unless you're because I just don't feel like we have all the facts in this situation, because I just don't trust the media in any way, shape, or form. I just think that there's a lot of there's just a lot of unknown from the Supreme Court that they're ruling about it, and what exactly is facilitate, right? Facilitate to what? Facilitate just out of the prison he was in? Facilitate that he's a free man there? Facilitate that he's coming back home, right? If you're just saying facilitate, where is the details in that facilitation, right? What did the Supreme Court order specifically say?
Okay. I'll try to clear that confusion up. All right, so for one, I don't want to be pedantic. But I do want to make this clear. This isn't for you. I mean, it is kind of for you,
Sure.
but it's
No,
most
we talked before. I get.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Keep
A lot
talking.
of
You do your thing.
a lot of this is for chat because I want to make
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
I want to make sure people know like what actually happened here. There's so much like people have there's a lot of misunderstandings about how this case went down, like a lot.
Yeah, you and I have talked before, and
Yeah,
that's why I
yeah,
love
I know,
talking
yeah.
with you. You're
So
great about it. Yeah, yeah.
So to be clear, to chat and to you, I guess. The Supreme Court didn't actually order Trump to do anything. Like that order was never really coming from them. All they said on it, their order was just that Judge Zennis's order stands. The district court had made a ruling and issued an order, which was to at the time facilitate and effectuate his release from custody, and then treat his case how it would have been treated had he not been deported illegally. Okay, so that was the order from the district court. That went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, we're going to uphold this order. It seems reasonable.
But by
and there's
that
no
point, he was already
violations here.
there, right? There was like a
Yes.
misconception about like when it was ordered from the federal court or from the lower court, like whether or not he was in the year or whether or not he was still here, right?
No,
Wasn't
no,
that kind of the big deal?
that's JGG versus Trump. Whole different case. Whole different case.
Okay.
So with Abrego Garcia's, I think by the time the Abrego Garcia case was filed, the first filing in district court, I think he was already there. Like by the time they even got into a courtroom. So this case, the Abrego Garcia case had been handled from start to finish. It hasn't finished, but from start to now has been handled with him under the knowledge that he is in El Salvador in custody there.
Okay.
So the order. So I just want to clear that up because people are like, the Supreme Court ordered him to do this. I'm like, well, hold on. I'm going to be a little pedantic. The Supreme Court didn't actually order that. They just said, hey, follow the district court's rule or follow the district court's order, you fucking dickhead. That's kind of what they said to the government at the time.
Right.
And then their only negative in that was that they're like, hey, this word effectuate. What do you mean by that? Because that could be taken in a way that's not so good. So what do you mean?
What does that even mean? I'm sorry.
So the original order said facilitate and effectuate his release from custody, and the Supreme Court
Right,
said,
what does the word effectuate mean?
Well, effectuate would mean make it happen, generally speaking.
Okay.
That's how you take that. And so the Supreme Court, when it got to them, was like, hey, we're gonna need you to clear up what you mean by that, because if what you mean is like you have to make this happen no matter what, like even if you have to like send in the fucking military, you have to get this guy out. Like the Supreme Court wouldn't stand for that. They would obviously be like, no, you can't order that. So all they said was, hey, clear this up for us. Well, what do you mean by effectuate? And so then it went back down to they remanded it back to the district court, and Judge Zennis was like, you know what? I don't feel like clarifying what that means, because she was like, this is too, like, I don't want to get into the semantics of what this word means. So her solution was to just take the word out. She was like, fuck it. We won't even use that word. I'll just say facilitate. That was her solution to that problem. Anyway, I think my point here being, my argument for what should happen here isn't based on like how I feel about the person. People always do like the let's character assassinate the guy. Let's say he's a horrible human being. He's the worst person to ever live. Fucking literally a demon monster. Like that's their solution to this problem. But my argument for how I came to my conclusion or my belief on this situation doesn't have anything to do with him as a person at all. It's completely devoid of any analysis in relation to that guy. It's entirely related to, we have laws in this country.
Fifth Amendment, right?
Yeah, we got laws here. We have a constitution here. We have processes here. If you want to remove people, it's actually not that fucking difficult to go through the proper channels. Even removing a guy that has a withholding order. For one, it was like a fucking 6-year-old withholding order. Like you could have gone back to an immigration judge and probably got it overturned in like 3-4 days. Like it probably wouldn't have been that difficult. So my argument here is just like the government should follow the law. Which I feel like is pretty reasonable. Like the government should follow the laws. The laws are in place, especially the Constitution.
Didn't he have two judges that basically wasn't an ICE judge and another judge that effectively said that, right, that he was deemed to be removed, right? Or am I
deemed to be removed? What do you mean? Like
no, or deemed to be sent back, right? That he was illegal and he's committed crimes here, and that what the Trump administration did was fine, or basically what the Trump administration was told to do was to essentially send him back, right? Wasn't there an ICE judge that was involved with this and another judge?
No. So in 2019 he was arrested or he was detained by ICE to be deported. Like they were going to deport him then. While he was in custody. While he was in custody, he wanted bail. Like he wanted to, be able to post bail and get released until his hearing. And at the bail hearing, I don't know how much knowledge you have on the court system, but when you go to a bail hearing, basically all the judge's analysis is just like, is it Is this a person that we can reasonably assume if I release him, if I let him post bail and release him, that he, for one,
Not going to run.
he's not going to run.
Right.
He's not going to commit any more crimes while he's waiting for his hearing. No, like nothing bad's going to happen. This guy's just going to go live his life, and wait for his hearing to happen. Right. That's what's determined at a bail hearing.
Okay. So what did that judge say?
The government. Well, this is the big important piece here. When you have a bail hearing, the biggest factor. There's no evidentiary standards really. There's like you don't have to prove anything on either side.
ICE already did that, right? Because they arrested him. So essentially he would have already been proven guilty, right? I mean, why else would you have a bail? I guess you're right. You wouldn't have a bail hearing if you're already proven guilty, right?
Yeah, if the cops come and arrest you on suspicion of like homicide, did they
Correct.
prove?
You're still innocent.
Did they prove? Yeah. So okay. So we're clear on that, right? So the arrest means nothing yet. At a bail hearing, the evidentiary standards are essentially non-existent, right? So it's just accusation versus accusation, and that's all the judge has to weigh. At this bail hearing, the government accused him of being a member of MS-13. They don't have to prove that. They just said, like, hey, we think this guy's a gang member. And based on that evidence, based on that accusation, the judge said, okay, then I'm not going to give you bail. Just sit in jail and wait for your hearing then. Because if you it's like if you are a gang member, I don't want to let you out.
Presented there. I still think evidence.
You're absolutely well within your rights. When I say you, I mean in this case the government is well within their rights to present evidence. Yes, but let me tell you that. Can I?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
I just I don't know what your opinions here are going to be, but I'm just acknowledge that I am completely telling you the truth here. When I say the evidentiary standards, sorry, I got the fucking TikTok inactivity thing. When I tell you that the evidentiary standards are really low, what I mean by that is that the government can present an accusation and then their evidence that supports that accusation, but you don't have the opportunity to tear any of that down. So in this case, the government said he's a member of MS-13, and look, we have this. He was a CI. We have this CI, this confidential informant for ICE that has made an that backed this up for us. That we have a CI that said that yes, I know this guy. He's a gang member, right? That was their evidence. And people take that to mean, oh, well, if a CI said it and and confirmed that he's a member, then he is.
And I don't trust the fucking government in that regards, period, right? Yeah, shit sucks.
Yeah, but what's missing from that analysis is that there's no opportunity for Abrego Garcia and his lawyers, mainly his lawyers, and what's he going to really do, right? For his lawyers to come in.
When he was arrested, was he out or in?
Out or in what?
Was he out or in prison? Custody, I guess, whatever.
This was 2019. He was like out and about, and he was arrested.
Right, I got that part. So then he was in, and then the judge obviously ruled that ICE was on the facts. So I'm saying, was he released after that?
I'm sorry. I see what yes, he was eventually released. Yes.
Okay. And then he never got a court hearing after that, or what?
No, he did. So here's how the release happened. So this bail hearing happens. The judge says, no, we're not going to give you bail based on this accusation, right? He appeals that. He appeals that. He's like, hey, this is bullshit. I'm going to appeal your decision to not give me bail. That goes to an appeals court. The appeals court they upheld the original immigration judge's order. They're like, no, look, you're motherfucker. No, you're not getting bail. Stay there. On the same logic of like, yeah, like we have like this is a credible as it stands. This is a credible accusation because it is. Right, think about that.
But they're gonna look at the evidence in that too, right? So
yeah, but that is what I'm saying is in this case the evidence was I mean we can read you can read these court filings. Right. Their evidence was a confidential informant said that you were. We have testimony from a confidential informant saying that you are a member of the gang, right? That's their evidence. Right. So when you're asking, don't they look at evidence? They did. That's the evidence. The confidential informant, right? But at no point in that process can Abrego Garcia's lawyers come in and pick apart the credibility of the CI. That's the issue. That's why that's not due process right there. And you don't have that expectation at a bail hearing. When you're going to a hearing to determine whether or not you're going to be bailed out of jail or you're going to sit in jail until your hearing, there's no expectation there that you're going to have the ability to confront your accusers because that's not what this is for yet. That's what the hearing will be for later. Anyway, appeals court upholds the original immigration judge's order to not give him bail. He sits in jail till his hearing. His hearing comes around. He claims withholding of removal. Which is it's similar to asylum, but it's not asylum. I don't have the time to go into the whole thing. It's similar to asylum. Claims it, presents his evidence for why it's justified to give him withholding of removal. The immigration judge agrees. He said, you've presented enough evidence to justify giving you withholding. He's given withholding. He's released.
Okay.
And then 5 years later, ICE comes and snags him and sends him to El Salvador.
Right.
Yes, and so in this recent case, in his current case that's ongoing, they're saying, look, this is a guy that had withholding of removal from a legal order telling you not to deport him to El Salvador. You fucking did it anyway, in violation of a court order.
But he was already there.
That's
he
illegal.
was already there, right? So he was already there. So how much of a violation of the court order is it when he's already there, right? So yes.
Well, it's still a 100% violation because the order is don't deport this guy to El Salvador, and so you can.
But he was already there. We already established the fact that he was already there, right?
When this case started, when the current 2025 case began, but this rule, the withholding order that I'm telling you about was given in 2019.
Correct, but you're saying that it was that he needed his due justice of law, right? But he was already there when the Supreme Court order came down. So in hindsight, it's already just too late. That's my view, I guess. So how would you like for it to be handled now, Andrew?
Wait, I'm sorry. I'll tell you, but I don't want to move on. That logic is horrific. That logic doesn't make sense at all.
In which way?
If in 2019 a judge gives the government an order like, hey, don't send this person to this country, don't do that shit, and that order stands, it never gets overturned or anything, that is still in effect. They
said that
in perpetuity.
So in 2019, they said that.
Yeah, that's what withholding is. Withholding of removal is an order that says the government may not deport this guy to this place.
Gotcha.
That's what that order says.
I appreciate that.
The government may not deport this guy to El Salvador. And so 5 years later, someone comes along and snags him and throws him on a plane and deports him to El Salvador. That is a violation of a court order. That's what that is.
Okay. So now, next question. I hear all that evidence and cool. So how would you like for the situation to be handled now?
I would like Trump to call Bukele.
Okay, and say what?
And I would like him to say, hey, look, ultimately, we did violate our laws by doing this. Okay, can you just let him out? We'll send a plane. We're gonna pick him up. We're gonna bring him back here. I'm gonna throw him right in front of an immigration judge, and we're gonna do this whole fucking hearing. And then that process.
What if they just did the hearing like via Zoom?
Huh?
What if they just did the hearing via Zoom, or that part, or two? Don't you think that the Trump administration has more facts on this issue, and ultimately he is here illegally, right? I mean, when does that play in?
That plays in at the hearing.
So do you think all these people that are here illegally deserve to have their own individual court case here heard? Do you know how long that would take?
Say that again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you think that all these people that are here illegally deserve to have each one of their cases heard? Do you know how long that would take? And I mean, would you be a proponent like every other president, essentially just deporting these people?
Can you define deserve?
You just said that everyone is allowed to have, essentially they have rights here, right? They have a constitutional right to essentially say if they should be here or not, right? I mean,
well, it's to challenge the right is to challenge the accusations that the government makes against you.
But you're here illegally. There's no challenge to that. You don't have a citizenship.
But that's the accusation. You see what I'm saying? That is when the government says we're going to deport you because you're illegal. Because you're illegal, that's the accusation. And you're right. You have a Fifth Amendment right to challenge that accusation. To say like, wait, no, what?
Well, how would you be able to challenge that if you don't have a citizenship? Like, how would you challenge that? Like, what would your challenge be? I'm interested.
Is the implication that if you're not a U.S. citizen, you are here illegally?
Unless you have a visa, yeah. Unless you have paperwork to be able to prove that, yeah.
What do you take to mean illegal? Like when you say like illegal immigrant, what does that mean to you? What is an illegal immigrant?
I think someone that is here that came across the border that doesn't have citizenship, so you weren't birthright. Is it birthright? I don't know what the fuck it's called. You weren't birthright here, or if you don't have papers, visa papers, or student visa papers, then you're here illegally.
All right, I'll give you my definition. You tell me how you feel about it.
Sure.
Okay? My definition of illegal immigrant is a person who is in the country without permission from the government.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so yeah, you're here, and the government at no point did the government tell you that you could be.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, then we can agree on that definition. We can go with that moving forward. Yeah. So when the government says you're an illegal immigrant, we're going to deport you. Your right is to say, hold on. No. For one, you could say there's two ways you can go about it. Really, there's actually two options here. If you want, there's three. One, this is the easiest option. One of the options is to just not challenge and just let them deport you. That happens a lot. I think people kind of overestimate how common that is. In a lot of these immigration cases, people just don't challenge.
Did we offer to pay a certain amount of funds for these people to leave?
I think at some point there was an offer for
Like $1,000 or something like that?
Yeah, I think there was some offer for voluntary deportation, sure.
Okay.
But that's yeah, sure, yeah. But yeah, so there's three options for when the government is detains you for to deport you. Is one, just not fight it, let it happen. Two would be to challenge the actual claim. You could challenge the basis of the claim. It could be the case. It's already happened a couple of times during this administration where someone is detained for deportation, and it actually does turn out that they are like a visa holder. Or I think there was one person that was a citizen that was detained. They're like, bro, what the fuck? Like, what is happening here? But I think that got cleared up pretty quick because then at some point you're just able to. Once they take you to the facility they're going to hold you at, you can just be like, listen, motherfucker, this is my social security number and there's a computer right in front of you. Look it up.
Right. And so these things are
those get cleared.
Yeah. So these things do get cleared up if people do have essentially a case to it, right?
Sure.
Which is good.
Sure. They do. Which, so I don't understand how we don't agree because what you just said.
We do agree.
I think what you just said actually entirely proved my point. So my point is, if you just let people challenge, that's the due process. If you let them challenge it, because when I say that, I think people, this isn't super directed at you, okay? But I think a lot of the people assume that when I say you have the right to challenge the accusation, that means that you have the right to just deny it and then like everyone has to believe you. Like the courts have to. You just have to be believed that like you're telling the truth and the government's lying.
Because it's just like what you said with the plane, right? They're thinking that all people need to have their own case, where there is a select amount of people that essentially would have a justified case, right? So yeah, I mean, it turns into like an all people, like, oh my God, all these people are just deported illegally, and they should all be brought back, and they should all have their hearing, right? And they all should be in front of a judge too. You know what I mean?
Well,
that they have that right, and it's just like no. Like I hope that the Trump administration has fucking more evidence about this stuff than we do.
So one of the mistakes there. I don't mean to be pedantic with you because you're pretty like good faith in these conversations, okay? But one of the things that, like when it comes to the plane. So I think on that original plane, it was like something like 230 something people were sent to El Salvador on that first plane, right? Or on that first day, March 15th. Out of that 200 something people, yeah, only like I think somewhere between like 20 and 30 of them are currently like suing the government over that. So yeah, it's not even like a huge percentage of the people. Like a lot of the people that were sent like aren't fighting it. Like they're just like, oh, I mean, and there's class action cases that incorporate everyone that was sent. So technically, like JGG was that case was kind of like that. It was a class action that was. It was meant to incorporate everyone that was targeted under the Alien Enemies Act. But like in terms of individual lawsuits, there's really not that many. There's not a lot of people that are like suing the government over it and fighting back.
Right. But the media skews it as a big, like everyone should, right?
Okay, so this is what I wanted to fight back on what you said. So one of the things you threw in there was you said the media takes that to mean that like, oh, all of these people were deported illegally. The thing is, they were. All of them were deported illegally. Just some of them aren't fighting it.
Correct, but just not. Yes, they were all deported illegally, but the media is also saying that all of them should have the ability to fight it.
Well, constitutionally speaking, they should have the ability. When you say ability, that just means all that means is opportunity. It means if you want. It is also the case that you can just choose not to. You can just be like, no, look, I'm not gonna like. Ultimately, like the government was right, and I was committing crimes in the U.S. And so you could just choose not to. A lot of people do. A lot of immigrants, when they enter deportation proceedings, just choose not to fight. They're just like, okay, yeah, you got me, you're right. Like,
I just think it's very grand. I hear your justification. You're spot on. I just think that people just take that as everyone, right? And so they believe that everyone is going to fight it, and that's where it just becomes a very big kind of a very big deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if everyone did fight it, it would be unhinged.
Right.
It would take forever. But that overlooks the fact that that's not how this works in practice. That's not what happens. A lot of people just don't.
Correct. Yeah, I hear you. Cool. I like that explanation a lot.
But that you can't let that take away from. We're not talking about morality here, or we're not talking about individuals here. We're talking about rights that the government, the rights protected by the Constitution. The reason it's more apt to say the rights protected by a lot of people frame it as like, the rights granted to you by the Constitution. That's inaccurate. The rights, your rights under the Constitution are not granted to you by the Constitution. These are fundamental rights that you have, and the Constitution is just there to protect them, to add a layer of separation between those rights and the government so they can't just come in and violate them whenever they want willy-nilly. The Constitution doesn't give you rights at all. It protects them, the ones you already have innately. So when we say, like, I don't. You are like very, very good faith, and you do actually want to talk and have a conversation. But I just feel like that understanding isn't there of like the reason the
No, I
argument.
for sure
Okay,
get it.
so
So I mean, I
I
think
understand.
that ultimately,
The thing I just want to. I'll say this, and then I'll let you go, or let you say what you want to say. Is what I mean. One of the things you said earlier that is very common amongst people I argue with is that like, yeah, but if we have all these cases, if we give everyone a hearing, won't it take forever? And I think mathematically speaking, if every single person that was in the country undocumented was all rounded up and they were all given hearings, it probably would take like 100 years. But again, as I've said a couple times, that ignores the fact that that wouldn't happen because that's not what happens in practice. And then secondarily, I think this is a much more important point, is that even if that was true, even if, I'll grant that. Let's say, yes, we're going to round up every undocumented immigrant and we're going to give them all immigration hearings. And it's going to take we've done the math. It's going to take about 100 years to get through them all. Even if that was true, we should still do it.
no. No, think about the expenses on our behalf, on the taxpayer behalf to do that. Like, that's where I'm going to very much disagree with you there. But I do 100% agree. And again, I just think it's more the media, like the way you explain things, right? About it's not every single person challenging this stuff, right? That also just needs to be said more, right? I think it's just an all or nothing thing that the media likes to play in to divide us, right? Your explanation of it is spot on. Now, the next thing I would say is, would you be happy with like a freaking Zoom thing on national television to present evidence? I think that'd be great in freaking understanding all this, and then to be able to call out the fucking bullshit narratives.
What are you talking about for? Hold up.
Yeah.
For a regular no, but hold up. Let me get to it. Let me go to back. I want to go back to like the first thing you said. I was just like, I want to hone in on this. This argument bothers me. Of it would cost too much. The thing is, we should,
Because it would take 100 years.
I know. The thing is, we don't care.
What?
We shouldn't care about how much money it costs to protect constitutional rights.
Of the case, like, yeah, but I'm going to go back to what you said. Of the cases that need to be freaking judged upon, right? You can't do every single one of the people that are here. Like, that's just no. Like,
But you wouldn't. For one, that just wouldn't happen. Yeah.
well, you just said if they needed to, then you're for it.
No, I'm saying if they did. Let's say like let me create like a hypothetical world in which we like ICE somehow was able to actually like somehow for one, it's not possible, but this is a hypothetical. Somehow ICE was able to detain every fucking undocumented immigrant in the entire country, every single one of them. And also, let's say every single one of them decided to challenge their deportation. They all fought, every single one. Even if that were the case, it would take forever. But even if that were the case, that's not an excuse to violate the Constitution.
Okay, let's move on from that again. So let's talk about like a Zoom meeting. So do you think like a Zoom meeting would be fine on national television, and it would shut down one of the sides for sure?
No, I don't think it'd be fine. But I also don't want to move on because I want to know why you think. I want to know why you think there is any logical basis to where you can excuse violate. Why do you think it's okay to excuse violating the Constitution?
I don't think it's okay to excuse the violation of the Constitution. But if you're here illegally and you have no grounds for being here, then you should be gone. Right? That's not a court case that needs to be heard. Just like what you said, right?
But
like
that's not what I said.
Well, if these people aren't wanting to fight the charges, then they should. I mean, I guess essentially just get rid of them.
Well, if they don't fight, that's their decision. But I'm saying,
Sure.
let's say in this hypothetical, they all did. That's tough shit. Tough shit. Sucks to suck that we have constitutional rights in this country. We have a constitution that lays out the rights that you fundamentally have. And that document is the only purpose the Constitution actually serves, at least the Bill of Rights. The only purpose there is to say these are the rights that you have. Again, I want to say the Constitution doesn't grant you any rights. The Constitution just says these are the rights that you have, and we're just laying them out here to say the government cannot violate these things.
Right. And I think that, okay. All right. I forgot my train of thought. All right. I forgot my train of thought. Okay, let's just go back to the Garcia thing. Do you think that should be a Zoom call? Would a Zoom call make you happy?
No, but
Why?
why we're not. I know you want to, but we're not moving on. You have to have, if you truly believe that if the circumstances, if you believe, it seems to be the case that you do, that under certain circumstances we can start tossing amendments. Why do you believe that, and where's your line for when we could just start disregarding what our Constitution protects?
No, I don't think that there are certain circumstances. I just think, oh, man.
You do. You clearly do, because for one, we'll just lay out the facts, right? The Constitution does grant you due process rights. In the case of immigration cases, it grants you the right to challenge your deportation or your detainment or the whatever, however you want to phrase it.
Correct. I think that if they want to fight it, then
it
should have been done before. Okay, if they wanted to fight it, it should have been done before they were getting deported, right? And ultimately, if these people were here longer than 3-4 years, why didn't they check in when you were? Why didn't they try to seek asylum or to do the things the right way?
Okay, I see but you understand that what you're doing is you're making a moral judgment. You're not making there's no legal analysis happening here. Legally speaking, regardless of what you feel about it, you feel like that you feel it was morally wrong for someone to come into the country illegally and not be upfront about it right away and immediately try to get an immigration hearing to shore up their case. You think it's wrong that they wait till they're about to be deported to do it. That's fine, but that's a moral judgment that you're making there, not a legal one. Legally speaking, even at the point of you're about to be deported, you still have the right to challenge. And so, that being said, your argument boils down to, if it were the case that we were deporting a fuckload of people and they all wanted to fight it, we can't, we can't let them do that. And that would be a Fifth Amendment violation. Why do you think it's okay to violate the Constitution? Why?
Because I think they're here, because it just goes back to where I just think they're here illegally, right? And I hope that the people that are deporting them have a little bit more evidence, or that when they are, I guess, detained, right, that they decide to fight it more then, I guess, right? Like, it can't be an ultimatum whenever you're just like, you're here and you've been detained, to say, hey, this is my chance to ultimately fight it. There are a lot of different variations to what you're trying to say. But I do find more that, yes, I do believe that ultimately it does come down to, I do believe that, it pains me to say this, that I would go against the Constitution here, and it pains me to say that.
Okay. That's all I was trying to get to. That's all I was trying to get to.
Yeah, for sure. I have no problem with that, but I do think there are a lot of hypotheticals. I appreciate it,
because most of the right-leaning people that I argue with refuse to say that, even though that's what they argue for. But ultimately, right. I know, again, this is going to sting. This is going to sting you, but the argument you are making an anti-constitutional argument, okay? That's what's happening. You're making an argument against the Constitution as it exists today.
With the hypotheticals that we put into place, I do think so, yes. Yeah, and ultimately, I do have a lot of empathy too. Hold on, let me state my case.
Motherfuckers don't want to admit that, and you did. That's something.
And I do have a lot of empathy too. I wish that, Trump or whoever would be like, if you've been here, if you came in under my administration the first time and you haven't committed a crime, you guys go get your paperwork done. Get this shit done. Get it applied for. Done. Right? If you came in under Biden, you got to go. Period. Adios. Bye. Right? If you came in before that and you haven't committed a crime, you guys are citizenship right away. Like, there should be something done. I wish that Trump would show some empathy there, but I understand what he's ultimately doing too.
Okay. So I'm going to take one step backwards. So now that we've got there, because that's all I was just trying to dig that out of you.
Sure.
Now that we've gotten there, now how do you justify? Okay, let me quote you real quick. So one of the things you said in there was that you would be willing to violate the Constitution under that hypothetical, because the hypothetical that I laid out was crazy, and it just isn't possible. It's not possible for ICE ICE can't round up every single undocumented immigrant, and then secondly, not all of them would fight their cases. That's just not, those two things are never going to align. They'll never happen together. It's just not a thing. Okay, so under that hypothetical, if it did happen, which it won't, but if it did, you'd be willing to violate the Constitution. Now, what is your excuse for Trump in the Alien Enemies Act deportations? That was only 200, and I think I'm guessing at the number. Not guessing. I'm trying to recall. I think it was 237 on March 15th. I think that was the number. 237 is not millions or billions or zillions.
Just sent to that prison,
that's a low
right?
fucking,
just sent to that country.
Yeah, that's a low fucking number. How do you justify him not giving any of those people due process?
Because I think those were the worst of the worst. Weren't those people essentially picked up with members of MS-13? Wasn't he picked up with MS-13 people, or weren't those people already in jail? Right. I think that's where a lot of the first people were being arrested from. I know there's a few, some few outliers, but for the most
Sure.
part, that's where,
There's
yeah, that's where
two points here. 2 points here. Secondly, or sorry, firstly, your due process rights do not change at all based on the seriousness of what you're accused of. Your due process rights are the same, assuming we're in. Let's paint ourselves into the criminal court context. Let's say you're gone to criminal court and you are accused of robbery. Let's say you stole from a gas station. That's a crime. That's illegal to do. But you have the same due process rights in that case as a accused serial killer, a much worse crime. The severity of your crime isn't going to have an effect on the rights afforded to you. You got the same rights. Now I will say there's a little bit of weirdness there with the Sixth Amendment. But we don't have to go into that because we're going to get very pedantic if we do. Okay, but let's say the rights are the same. Technically, Sixth Amendment gets a little weird. Anyway, your rights the same. So that argument doesn't track. You saying like, well, those people were worse. That doesn't mean anything. The seriousness of the accusation against you doesn't change your rights at all. There's no effect.
Right, but those people aren't fighting the argument, right? This becomes an all or nothing thing, right? You're saying all these people haven't already been determined to be, already haven't been judged upon, one, or two, all these people are fighting the deportation.
I think you just... This is why I don't understand why you and I argue, because I think all of our conversations we've ever had go exactly like this, where you are making my point. That is what I'm saying. None of the people fought. Why didn't they fight before they were sent away?
Correct, but what you just said, right? You said 237 people were deported, right? And then you said, but these, sorry, deported. But then you said, but it doesn't matter the severity of the crime, right? But of the 237 people, we're only hearing about the one, right, that is trying to fight, or that is trying.
That's definitely not true. That's definitely.
But as I said, we're only hearing.
That's the most famous. Well, that's your fault.
But I'm not saying it's a definitive. I'm just saying we're only hearing, right? Of course,
we're not only hearing. We're hearing. There's a lot more than just Kilmar's case.
Okay. Then those cases also need to be presented.
Sure. I'm asking you, answer this question. You said that and you are correct, that prior to being put on those planes, kind of. I'm actually just going to give you the charitability here, even though this isn't 100% correct. It's mostly right. Prior to being put on those planes, nobody in this group of 237 people on the planes fought this deportation. And I'm asking you, why?
Why? I guess because they thought that they were just going to be able to stay until Trump's orders came, or until he got elected president, and then they're trying to figure out, or a different thing. Or even, the lawyers on the left are like, oh, we can all of a sudden make Trump look bad. Hey, I'm going to represent you. How can we kind of skirt what's going on?
No, I'll just tell you. Because they did not get the chance to, because there was no notice. And this isn't, I'm actually going to give you some slack here. I'm not going to blame you for this, because I don't think in any of the conversations we've had, and definitely not in this one, I don't think I've ever brought this up to you. But one of, if not, maybe even potentially slightly the most important part of due process is the notice requirement. That means that before the government can issue a deprivation against you, before they can give you a sentence or deport you or just deprive you of anything, they must notify you that they're gonna, so you can fight it. In the case of these March 15th Alien Enemies
Act, they're probably locked up when they get notified.
No, but that is the issue. Some of the people, actually, if not like the bulk of them, were in ICE detainment, for sure. But if ICE just comes and grabs you and throws you in a cell and detains you, but doesn't tell you why, and doesn't tell you what's about to happen, and doesn't tell you what they're going to do with you, that's not notice. Notice would be, listen, we have detained you under the authority granted to the executive branch by the Alien Enemies Act. You have,
but that was enacted when Trump first took office, so they wouldn't have to notify them of the Alien Enemies Act until Trump took office, right? So if they're already in prison, why would they have to be notified of that?
oh man, there was a lot of
For
fundamental.
sure.
There was a lot of fundamental misunderstandings in that sentence. Okay, I'll try to deconstruct these one at a time. I'll try to pick these apart one at a time. The notice necessitates before a deprivation. So in this case, the deprivation is deportation, right? Before the deprivation occurs, you must be notified that it's gonna happen, and under what authority? Like what, basically it's like the government has to tell
But
you
you don't.
the
But
accusation.
you don't know that number, Andrew. Right? Like that's
I'm
where
sorry, what number do I not know?
you won't know how many people have been notified of that. Nobody does.
Well, you could just read the court filings.
Right. So how many of them, like this is where either side of the political aisle would win a battle if they were to say, these are the court filings and this is how many people were notified, this is how many people were not. Have you
Okay,
ever seen that?
so I would win the battle if I did that. Okay, so here's
Sure.
let's go to the court filings. The case is called JGG versus Trump.
Again, I don't want one. I want to see the numbers of the 236 people. What were the numbers there? Don't pick out just one solo act or two solo acts. I want to see the overall
I just want to be
numbers.
clear. What you're doing right now is you are assuming you know what you're talking about when you don't. Because
No,
I
I'm
called,
not assuming.
you are because I called the case JGG versus Trump. Immediately, something clicked in your brain where you assumed that JGG versus Trump is one guy suing Trump. JGG versus Trump is a class action lawsuit. It's called JGG versus Trump, but it encompasses all of the Alien Enemies Act deportees.
Okay.
So you made an
What are the
assumption,
numbers there?
and you're wrong.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
don't assume.
Well, okay.
Okay, anyway, the number of people that were notified that they were to be deported under the Alien Enemies Act out of the 237 people on the first planes on March 15th was 0. As upheld.
Okay, but again, hold on.
by
But
the
when were
Supreme
those
Court.
people arrested?
You understand that doesn't mean, like, that doesn't matter, right?
That's right, because you're only about to be removed of the Alien Enemies Act whenever Trump enacted that executive order. So if they were already in prison before that executive order came down, why do they have to be notified of that? I guess I kind of see my own reasoning in a kind of a weird way.
I was like, did you just like walk yourself to the correct answer? Because the deprivation here isn't being in jail. That's a whole different situation. Like, as to why they were detained, that's a whole different case. You'd have to that would be like different litigation. The deprivation we're interested in here is the deportation. And so before they do that to you, they got to tell you that they're gonna do it and why they're gonna do it, so you can fight it if you want to fight it.
Yeah, I see where you're at there.
Okay, so if none of them were ever told until it was literally happening right now, like, hey, we're taking you to an airfield, and if none of them were told that they were being deported, or under what authority they were being deported, or why they were being deported, then they were deprived of due process. That is the argument here. And I'll bring it back to my first question. How do you defend that? How do you defend Trump saying, like, yeah, fuck those guys, Fifth Amendment's for pussies, we're not giving it to them? Like, what's your defense there?
It's ultimately goes back to my defense is they're here illegally, right? And I think that they have more evidence of they're already incarcerated, that he has, evidence of the crimes that they've committed, whether or not they have been in front of a judge to hear from those crimes. I don't really think that if they've already been accused of such big crimes, that if you're here illegally, I do go against that. And I do go against the Constitution in a weird way there, where it's just too many people here, right? And I feel bad. I think it really does suck. But it's just the way it has to be. Now, you can kind of ultimately come back around to these cases when these people, go back to where they are, and, they have lawyers. Essentially, all these American lawyers want to represent these people to, probably file civil lawsuits and win tons of money. So they're going to have lawyers. But I mean, I hope that they come back around to these things. I mean, that's my hope, but who knows?
Would you say it's fair for me to, would you think it's fair of me to believe that you just aren't a very principled person? You don't really care about the Fifth Amendment all that much? You think that's a fair assessment of me to have of you? That is my assessment of you, by the way. I just want to be clear. This isn't hypothetical. That's what I believe of you. I believe that you're not very principled. I don't think you actually care about the Fifth Amendment much at all. And I just want to know, do you think that's fair for me to think that?
No, I don't
based
think
on
that's
this conversation?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. I'll tell you why.
I think there's just too many hypotheticals involved in all these situations.
Well, this isn't a hypothetical. This happened. And your argument for why it's okay is that, well, the government said they were illegal anyway, so fuck them.
Because I do believe the government has more evidence than what we have.
Okay, so if they did, where would be the place to present that?
I guess later on in court. I wish they would have a fucking nationally televised. I wish they would have a nationally televised thing for all these people.
Not later on in court, before you issued the deprivation in court. That's how our system works.
Okay, so maybe they're doing that now. Maybe they are upholding the Supreme Court order and doing that now, but they already deported. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to go get those people and just bring them back here? No, like so those people are already gone. Now, if we're going to circle back, let's have a court case for each one of those people that are already there.
I'm just not sure how much more I can clearly say this. Okay. The way our system works, I know they're already there, but that is inherently, fundamentally, the problem. The way our system works is that before the government issues before the deprivation occurs, the evidence gets laid out and a decision gets made. That happens before, not after. Correct. You don't do the thing. You don't do the you don't do the deprivation and then say, all right, now we're gonna have a fucking court case here.
Correct, because he thought he could
civil
do that,
context,
right? He had the executive order, right? He had the executive order of the president to do that. He made that order, so he was going to go through with that, right? Then it goes through then it goes through the courts, and the court re-rules. What is he going to do? Is he going to go get those people? No, he's not. But ultimately, I do hope he circles back to those people, right, and has a freaking hearing for them, right? You can't go back and you can't go back and undo it, but you can move forward to where each one of these people are now getting presented with that paperwork or are now getting the opportunity to have that under the Aliens Act, right? But you can't go back with the people that were already gone before that ruling came down.
Okay, I don't think you've shown why it's unfair of me to believe that you don't care about the Fifth Amendment, because I think you're just further proving that you don't. So what you're actually doing, what this is you're making an argument for doing things the way you wish they worked. You're saying like this is okay because this is the way I wish it was, but I'm telling you that's not how shit works here, and so you're okay with violating our laws and our
but that
processes.
is ultimately how shit works. Ultimately, something happens and then it gets ruled upon, or it gets thrown to these court systems to understand the situation and then to present those laws. Right? You don't just ultimately. I guess your Bill of Rights, you have those laws inherently in there. But a lot of these court cases happen after something happens, and then you have a court system or you have a ruling that enacts the law later.
These cases, in terms of the AEA deportations, these cases, the only reason that they came after the deportations already happened is because there was no opportunity to file any of it before the deportations happened, which again is my argument. They violated the notice requirements, which, by the way, the Supreme Court also agrees with. By the way, that's another point. I don't bring it up as often with people. Like, how do you defend against that? Like, how do you defend against the Supreme Court unanimously being like, yeah, Trump violate this is a constitutional violation for sure.
I don't. So moving forward, I do hope that
the Constitution.
Doesn't violate. I have to see the exact ruling, but I probably would say yes. I do believe he violated the ruling, but he did it beforehand. So it's a weird situation.
Not violated the ruling. Violated our Constitution, the Constitution of the United States of America, that's been existed since the founding of America.
Correct, but when he enacted the Illegal Aliens Act, right, he did that in a way to circumvent that.
He didn't enact the
right, so he did a way to circumvent that. He's kind of tricky in that way.
No law and no executive order can circumvent the Constitution. Do you know that? Yes or no?
Again, I'm not gonna say one way or another. I have to kind of think about that. On my mind,
you have to think about. You need time to consider whether or not a law or an executive order can violate the Constitution.
It's not just a law and it's not just an executive order. It's the way that these things are written, almost like lawyer talk, to kind of have loopholes in certain aspects of it, right? And so you have to kind of understand all the loopholes or all the fucking fundamental stuff, and then come to ultimately what you believe is right and wrong.
If a law is written and passed, and it's written in a way in which it has a loophole to the Constitution, is that a valid law?
I don't know. Think about our taxes.
Well, we have a constitutional amendment that establishes the income tax. So no, it is tax laws are directly not a violation.
But there are ways to loophole around all the freaking ways to essentially what parts of taxes you have to pay, what you don't have to, what you can make up, right? There are loopholes to that. That's why the rich get away with that shit. Right. So yeah,
you're talking about loopholes in tax code, but the fact that we have a tax system is established by the Constitution.
Right. And we have a legal system that is established by the Constitution. And this is a different aspect to it where we probably never thought all this might happen. Right. And he tried to find a loophole and then it got shut down. So now moving forward, if he does that, yes, he's in direct violation of what he has essentially established. But before that, I think that he did his thing. Now, does he have to come back and have a case with these people? Yes.
Okay, sure. I'm gonna drag us all the way back a couple of sentences in the conversation. I'm gonna ask you one more time because this is fucking ridiculous. Can a law passed by Congress or an executive order signed by the president be in violation of the Constitution? Is that something that is allowed in our country? Can an executive order supersede the Constitution? If the president were to sign, an executive order that's like explicitly was able to loophole one of the fundamental rights granted in the Bill of Rights, would that be allowed?
But it's not just that part. Hold on. Let me get
It's
a
just a
second
yes
to
or no.
explain.
It's either yes,
No,
that's
no, no.
possible, or
Let me,
no, it's not
no,
possible.
no. Let me give it a second to explain this. Right? If he were to just deport them before the Illegal Aliens Act was there, right, that would have been directly in violation of the Constitution. But he enacted the Illegal Aliens Act to circumvent that. What's up?
Stop saying that shit. It's not true. He did not. He had nothing to do with the Alien Enemies Act. He had nothing to do with it. The
Then who
Alien
did?
Enemies Act was passed in 1798. Was Trump alive in 1798?
But he's using that. Sorry, he didn't enact it.
So
but
he didn't
he's
enact
using that.
shit. He's using the powers
Okay.
granted by it. Okay.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Thank you for establishing that. Yes, but he did that, right? That's exactly what he was doing, and nobody saw that coming. So if he were to just do that without saying that, yes, he would be in direct violation. But he used that to his advantage.
What is the Alien Enemies Act? Out of the
We'll do
three
that.
things we've established so far, we've established constitutional amendments, we've established laws, and we've established executive orders. And when I say established, I mean these are the things we've talked about so far. Out of those three, what is the Alien Enemies Act?
Essentially, I think that where he believes that we are being overtaken, or sorry, not just he, that we are.
No, I mean
Yeah, it's a
out of those three options, constitutional amendment, law, or executive order, which of those three is the Alien Enemies Act? It's one of those
Under?
three. Which one is it?
Under? Yeah, that's a great question. What is it under?
Is that you saying you don't know? And you're
No, I have no. I probably no. Like I'm in the
Alien-
midst of this. I.
okay. Say it. The word Alien Enemies Act.
Yep.
What is an act?
Yeah, it's part of the amendment, or part of the Constitution.
No, it's a law. What is the Constitution? What do we call that? We call the Constitution the supreme law of the land. Have you ever heard that phrase?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying the Alien Enemies Act loopholes the supreme law of the land? Can you analyze that sentence and tell me why it's dumb?
Okay, so why would it be enacted in the first place?
That's a great question. That's the best question you've asked me this entire conversation. I'm actually going to teach you something today that's going to carry forward for the rest of your life. I'm glad you're getting this knowledge.
Sure, me too.
Okay. You asked me if the Alien Enemies Act is incapable of creating a loophole to the Constitution because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, how did it ever get passed at all? Well, let me tell you. A law can be written in a way that it does not violate the Constitution at all. Meaning
Bingo.
the law as written, the way words on paper, the exact way it's written is not a violation of the Constitution. But then
Bingo.
yeah, but then someone could come along and they could use that law, the law that was not unconstitutional originally. You can use it in a way that is unconstitutional.
Okay, and that's what the Supreme Court ruled upon after those people were already there, right? But before then, he used that to his advantage to just deport these people. You just answered the question.
Let's
You
move
just
forward.
answered that.
Forward from there. Sure. So you're saying,
Okay.
I get what you're saying. You're saying the law itself was never unconstitutional, but Trump came along and used it in an unconstitutional way, and then the Supreme Court said, "Hey, that was unconstitutional, and now he can't do it anymore." Okay, that's where
Well,
we're at.
you can't say he used it in an well, I guess if they
No,
say he
yeah.
used it in an unconstitutional way after they viewed it as that, yes. But when he did that, it wasn't in an unconstitutional way.
Okay, and so that makes it what the whole thing. Like, okay, that's an unfair question for me to ask. Let me set the stage. When Congress passes a law, that law goes into effect, and if later the executive branch uses that law against somebody and they sue because they believe the law itself to be facially unconstitutional, meaning the way it's written statutorily, it's unconstitutional.
Sure.
And the Supreme Court, it makes its way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agrees, like, yeah, this is unconstitutional, and they strike down the law. That law was what? It was invalid, correct? That was an invalid law.
Not before.
Yes, before.
Ugh.
Let me give you an example. For instance, if a law, if it were the case that Congress passed a law, and under this new law, I'm not
So
even
let's
going
look
to
at the federal
hold
stuff,
on. Seriously, this is really going to help your visualization of the whole process, right? So let's say I'm not going to tell you what the law made illegal, but let's just say they pass a law, it makes some action illegal now, and the executive branch takes this law and they prosecute 10 people. 10 people get prosecuted underneath this new law, and the first 9 people don't fight back on a constitutional basis. They just take it. They take the L, and they are all convicted. They all go to jail. The 10th person fights back, and they say, this is unconstitutional. This is bullshit. That makes its way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court agrees. This is unconstitutional. Boom. Strike down the law. This law is not valid anymore. Those first 9 people that were convicted underneath this law, they all have a basis now to have all of their convictions overturned because they were convicted under unconstitutional law. So all of the previous usages, every previous usage of that law, it was only just now ruled unconstitutional, but all the previous usages are now invalid because it was unconstitutional because it was unconstitutional the whole time. It was just never got ruled on yet. So that all it's invalidated. In this case, Trump does a thing, he does the thing, and then later, then it gets ruled on after he's already done it that it was unconstitutional. That means the actions he took previously are invalid.
Okay, but when at the time of it, it was not unconstitutional. Like we're on the same page that afterwards, yes, it ultimately becomes unconstitutional if you want to go back on it. Yes, we are because but at the time of it,
the ruling just hasn't happened yet.
Okay, so this also goes back to my point. The ruling has not happened yet. So during this whole time, everything that he did was able to happen. But now the ruling has happened, right? Now we have to go back. We have to circle back, and we have to give them their essentially their due rights to a court case.
Okay,
but they're there.
So
but
they are due the rights. I don't like using the word due because the word's due. They are owed due process rights.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, so now, you agree. Okay.
But they're there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this: what do you think about the argument? Fuck. This is not a fair question to ask you, but I'm going to do it anyway because I feel like like I said, I don't think you respect the Fifth Amendment, so I'm going to be a little meaner than normal. How much of any of these Alien Enemies Act cases have you actually read the filings for? You can say 0. That's totally fine. I would get that.
For sure, 0.
Okay. All right. So you haven't read these. Fine. Let me just tell you something. The government's argument, and I'm not bullshitting you. Their argument, the government lawyers in court, they're in a fucking court of law making this argument. The argument goes, yes, we agree and we understand that these deportations were illegal, but once we've already sent them over there, they're out of our jurisdiction and we can never do it. We can't do anything about it. It's cooked. It's done. It's over with. Like we can't get them back. We can't do it. We can't do shit. It's done. It's handled. So your argument here is, okay, Trump did a thing that was unconstitutional. It was ruled unconstitutional. And now he should know. He should be well aware that these people are owed their due process rights to be given to them. But the government's argument in court is, actually, fuck you. They're already gone. We can't do shit about it. Do you see how you create if I allow your argument to stand, if I allow this to be the case, what you believe in here, if I allow this argument, you have now created a system in which the president of the United States can do anything to anyone. Or when I say any, he can exile anyone from the country, and then no one can do anything about it. It's done. It's over with.
No, that's not it at all. Like he did that stuff under. Hold on. He did that stuff under the act, but now that is ruled unconstitutional. Now I believe he needs to go back to these cases, right, of the people fighting it, and he should have a due process for them.
I know that. That's what you're saying. You're saying he should go back to them now, but I'm saying
right.
That's what we're kind of all trying to make happen now. We're all trying to say like, hey, motherfucker, give these people their hearings, give these people, their due process rights. And what I'm trying to tell you is the reason I asked you if you'd read any of these cases is whilst we're making that argument of give these people their due process rights, is lawyers are in court saying, you can't make me because they're not in the country anymore. They're gone. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not for that. I'm not for
that. So then they'll take that to its logical conclusion. What that means is now we've created a system in which as long as the government just rushes you out of the country fast enough before any court can do anything about it, once you're gone, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way that it was written before that. Yep. I mean, and that's just an unfortunate situation. Like, I hope it doesn't happen moving forward.
So the thing is, not. You said that's the way it was written before that. It isn't.
Well, that's the way he used it to his advantage. He used that part.
He used it illegally. At no point. But okay, I guess this is the first thing I should. For one, I'm going to ask you a question that I know the answer to. Okay, I already know, but I want you to say it for the audience. Have you read the Alien Enemies Act, the actual piece of legislation?
Nope.
I know you haven't. Where in the so again, unfair question because you just said you haven't read it. Where in the Alien Enemies Act does it say that you can do all these things can be done in violation of the Fifth Amendment?
I have no idea, but I'm sure he knew that he could get away with it. He's slimy like that. Look, there are certain things that he uses to his advantage. He's smart. He's smart about how he does things, and he knows what he can get away with, and ultimately he tries to get away with it until it's ruled upon by the courts. But I do hope that once it was ruled upon by the courts, that he is giving these people their due process before they are deported.
Okay. You kind of just hit the nail on the head. I think we finally arrived back at an agreement. I do agree with you. The only disagreement we have is you seem to give Trump enough charity to where before the Supreme Court ruled he thought he wasn't violating the Constitution. I my position is that he absolutely knew that he was. But you did hit the nail on the head. But you hit the nail on the head. You said he knew he could get away with it. You're absolutely correct.
Correct. He's smart.
Yeah, he knew he was. Well, okay, no, I don't agree there. But he was in violation of the Constitution. These deportations were absolutely illegal, unconstitutional. He knew that. Did it anyway because he knew he'd get away with it.
Yeah, I think he was hoping he would get away with it with even more, for sure.
Okay. So you would agree then that he broke the law.
After the law was established, secondly, by the Supreme Court.
Well, I'm saying he broke the law as written. The Alien Enemies Act doesn't give the president the ability to deport people with no due process.
Again, I'd have to read that, so I'm going to take your word for it, right? But I mean, obviously,
there's no
you used
due
that
process loophole there.
How do you know that?
Because I've actually read the Alien Enemies
Again,
Act.
but are you a lawyer though? Like, are you like he has many.
You can't just read.
I can, of course, I can.
Okay, so you can just read. You can just read a law and then just be like, oh, this is what the law allows for, and this is what it doesn't.
Okay. Anyway,
do you
Andrew,
know what? Hold on. We'll just. This will be quick. Do you know what unconstitutional vagueness is?
go ahead. Come on, keep teaching me. I'm enjoying this.
Okay. The argument you're just making is like, well, if you're not a lawyer, then there's no possible way you can know what a law allows for. That argument, if that was true, if a law was written in such a way in which only lawyers could possibly understand it, where it's like, if you're not a lawyer, there's no fucking way you could ever understand what this allows for and what it doesn't, that would be deemed unconstitutionally vague. Meaning the law itself, because it was written that vague, is unconstitutional.
Okay, but what is going to happen, and how are you going to establish that was what he was doing? That's a hard way to prove it, right? That's a hard thing to prove, that you knew that you were doing something wrong, right? One, and two, he's already sent these people out, and he's not going to change that part. But I hope moving forward he does.
It's not hard at all to prove that you knew you were doing. Like, mens rea is not that hard to prove. We do it all the time. We like fucking a humongous percentage of the amount of of the crimes that we have on the books that people get convicted of every single day have some sort of mens rea requirement, some sort of knowledge that what you were doing was wrong, and we prove it all the time. It's not that hard.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I don't really know about that all that injury, and I think that's just a big hypothetical thing. But again, that doesn't matter to me. I really appreciate you, bud.
Thank you for coming, by the way. Okay.
Always.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. Have a good one, man.
Welcome back anytime. Have a good one. Bye.
You too, man. See ya.